Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Purdy Insurance. Visit Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury or visit online at purdyinsurance.com.
With that, we turn to SI.com's Mark Wogenrich. My friend, welcome. Great to see you on Saturday. Great to talk with you today.
As always, Steve, my pleasure, too. It's really good to see you on Saturday. What a day that was, too. My gosh. 50 in November.
Yeah, 50 in November, which was phenomenal. I don't know how Sean was with all of you after the game on Saturday, because we were doing the post-game show. You guys were downstairs in the interview room. But when Jack and I had him on, and I asked him about his support system through all the ups and downs of being a starting quarterback in the college level, he really choked up when talking about it. How was he down there with you guys?
I thought he was going to choke up, too, which he's done, I think, a couple of times this year. He used the term self-aware, and I've written that about him over the course of this season, and that he's a very self-aware quarterback. He knows his place in Penn State history. He knows his place on the field, too, at Beaver Stadium, and those times when he's struggling and there are boos, and he understands all of that, yet he has never let that outwardly become an issue. And never, I'm going to sense that if it is inwardly an issue, he suppresses it enough, or at least he moves past it enough. At this point, he's figured out a way to deal with it. So finishing that game, to me, it was funny. I was actually kind of hoping he wouldn't throw another pass after. I don't think he would, but after the touchdown, I thought, what an amazing thing to be able to say you bookended your career with your first pass to Beaver Stadium being a touchdown and your last pass to Beaver Stadium being a touchdown. That's a remarkable, that's got to be a remarkable thing to be able to look back on at some point, and then have your parents there. The support system was in the tunnel with him all the way up into the locker room and the media room, and his lap. The reaction I think that he got in the post game, taking that lap around Beaver Stadium too, seemed to me it meant a lot to him, and he was a much more of a big picture kind of quarterback after that game in trying to put into words what the last 6 years have been to him, because they've not been easy. Can't possibly be easy what he's had to go through with the hills and valleys. But I think overall, having the parents there, being able to play with his brother for 2 years, the teammates that he's had, and looking all over the course of that career, I think he should be able to look back on that career with pride, and the fact that everybody was able to see it and see that finish the way it did in that game at home has got to mean something.
Yeah, no question about it. And Mark, when you look at a team that was unranked in the preseason, and you see them now with 10 wins with 1 to play, and finish the way they did now in the top 10, what have we watched over the last 3.5, 4 months?
Watched a team that was much better than I initially gave it credit for. I mean, I was in a 9-3 camp. I just thought they probably didn't have the horsepower to beat Michigan and Ohio State this year. And then I thought there was going to be another game. There was just going to be that game that maybe they don't play well, and it happens. Everybody has that game. Michigan and Ohio State had that game last week. They nearly did anyway with Illinois and Maryland, respectively. But what impressed me the most is that after they lost to Michigan, they came back and pounded Minnesota. After they lose Ohio State, they came back and pounded 4 Big Ten opponents. You can argue competition, sure, that that their schedule might have been front-loaded. The Big Ten teams they played at the end were not the best teams in the conference, obviously, and so on and so on. But winning out of the gate at Purdue that Thursday night, Purdue is in the Big Ten title game. Michigan, the 2 teams they lost to, Michigan and Ohio State, are now top 5. So over the course of this weekend, I'm seeing, the what-if scenarios of a playoff. What happens if, and somehow Alabama, sneaking its way or maybe like rising its way back into contention. I would argue if you're going to make the argument for Alabama, you have to almost make it then for Penn State as well. I don't think either one obviously has an argument, but if you want to compare resumes for this season, I don't know about programs historically, but for this season, they would have similar resumes, and that's a number one overall ranked team to start the season, mostly, and an unranked team to start the season. So your paths, and that really, to me, just goes to show your paths can really, really go in a variety of ways that you ultimately may or may not expect.
That would be number one, maybe being 5 or 6, and unranked being probably 8, so they'd be within 2 or 3 of each other. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Conventional wisdom, as we all know, and we have got to make sure everybody understands what the conventional wisdom is, says at this hour before the games are played this weekend, it would be the Cotton Bowl with Tulane. But the Rose Bowl is possibly in play, and you and I both know Pat Kraft would be working hard to convince people of that. What is the scenario that does allow that to happen?
I've already talked myself into that, and I wrote about that over the weekend, that the Rose Bowl, if you read their selection procedures, they leave the door open for situations just like this. They use the word traditionally will invite the next highest ranked team from the conference if the conference loses a team to the playoff.
They also use the word caveat, which I thought was interesting.
That's exactly right. So the next highest ranked team obviously is Ohio State. Ohio State is essentially the next highest ranked team for 2 bowls. The Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl, being that Big Ten, SEC, Notre Dame contract kind of team. So to me, it's a natural almost swap or fit, however you want to describe it, to send Ohio State to the Orange Bowl. It is not in any way a diminished capacity bowl. They are the qualifier. If they finish number 5, they are the de facto qualifier for the Orange Bowl in that, in the Rose or in the Orange Bowl scenario, which makes a great fit for Penn State to the Rose, with Ohio State having been there last year and 2 of the last 4. To me, I don't think it's an outlier possibility in any way. I think that's something that really could be finagle. Neither bowl is a bad choice, Rose or Cotton, but I think the way that would work, the Rose, it wouldn't. Not to say that wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it would be. I think it's a viable choice. It's a viable alternative for the Rose Bowl in this year.
And this goes with Michigan winning, because obviously if Purdue wins, they go to the Rose Bowl, right?
Right.
And conversely, the opponent would be either Washington, highest ranked team, or Utah. If they were to beat USC, they would be the Pac-12 champion, and they would get the bid. So, I mean, it's
even more so, right? Like even more so, if Utah does win, goes to the Rose Bowl, that's a rematch of last year, Ohio State, right. Utah. I mean, it could be if Ohio State's not in the playoff.
Right. Yeah, and that, again, conventional wisdom says Cotton. The Rose is not, though, out of the realm of possibility. In fact, it may be a greater possibility maybe than some people are thinking, especially if C.J. Stroud decides not to play.
Yeah. I think it's a very big possibility in my view. At some point I might even turn toward the idea that it would be more possible, because if you think of the matchups possible, Penn State, Washington, Ohio State, Clemson, I know they played, but still a fascinatingly an interesting matchup. And then Tennessee and the Group of 5 team in Dallas for the Cotton Bowl. I think a lot of that is pretty sensible.
Yeah, it is. It is sensible. And Alabama going to the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Right. When it's all said and done, when you look at the kids, because this is an interesting team. We've talked about the seniors, the Mustafers, the Cliffords, the Browns. Joey Porter played on Saturday, for example. but a lot of people are justifiably enamored with Abdul Carter, Nicholas Singleton, and Katron Allen. What have you seen in their impact compared to what you thought their impact might be in August?
I was there, actually. I remember going back to June when there was a media availability in June with last year's freshman class that James Franklin was available, and we were talking to him out on the practice field, and that was Abdul Carter's first day on campus. And I got to, it was kind of, so he's walking across the practice field and kind of caught a glimpse, and that was the first time I'd seen him in person. And I remember thinking, yeah, physically he's everything that James Franklin said he was. Back on signing day last year, he looked the part. I don't know. You might know this. I don't know. I didn't have a chance to look it up. I don't know that a true freshman has ever led the defense or led Penn State's defense in tackles for losses and sacks. And that's what he's done this year with a runway to the season. I mean, he didn't start leading them in defensive snaps. It probably took 6, 7, 8 games. I mean, he started the last 2. But it was this gradual kind of playing time rise. It was very similar. I thought I'm really smart in a way. What they did with Micah Parsons and kind of introducing him behind a senior, as Penn State did with Abdul Carter and Jonathan Sutherland, to the point that you could not bring him off the field. And his pursuit to the ball, the speed he showed, I thought that coverage play he made with Michigan State threw the touchdown to Malik Carr, their 6'5", 260-pound tight end. I thought he actually had not bad coverage there. It's hard to cover a 6'5" tight end and make the one-handed catch in the end zone. So that, even to me, that play was a bit of a look. I thought that showed what you could expect from him in the future. He was the surprise to me. Like, I know he had number 11 and a lot of conversation coming in, but the running backs, I think I expected not for them to be just the entirety of the running game, but to be a focal point. Carter, I don't know that I expected him to make that kind of impact this year.
You know what's interesting about Singleton and Allen? The fact that it happened organically, Mark, as you and I watched it play out. They're only separated by 7 carries on the season.
And the beautiful thing about that is that their legs should be, they're not going to be like Chase Browned up and 200 carries kind of thing this year. That was beautiful. And that's the kind of thing that maybe you could see that continuing. That if you're able to have those two kind of backs who are willing to shape that kind of workload and maybe even think about it as an asset to their future development and the future of their football career, that they're not going to come out of college broken down as running backs and go to the NFL without a lot of wear and tear, without a lot of mileage, and the way they were able to. I think maybe there was this impression that they were going to be a thunder and lightning combination, but I think you saw elements of both as the season went on too. You saw Katron Allen become a kind of guy who could break a run, and you saw Nicholas Singleton become the kind of back who could run over people. They really just seemed to share that position in not a way that they were playing off each other in different kind of talents, but they were a blend. And I don't remember seeing anything like that. I know Penn State was trying to come up with some numbers about the running back tandem totals, and they're up there with some of the great tandem totals or great running back tandems that Penn State's had in history.
Yeah, I asked Nick about over the season, what have you learned from Katron? Because the two of them are together all the time at practice. And he says, Steve, he's taught me patience. All right? It's like, it's interesting. They're picking up from each other as to how they're playing. Mark, it is always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for the perspective. Look forward to talking again soon.
Absolutely will do. Enjoy your trip to South Carolina.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I'm going. I've been down there like this will be like 5 or 6 days, Mark, in the month of November down there. I think somebody's going to give me a voter registration card here shortly.
That's true. I guess I didn't realize that, but yeah, you will.
Yeah. So.
Great.
Oh
Thanks.
man.
We appreciate it.